We're going to assemble this 7-cylinder radial engine. We start with the two outer halves, the outer shell. One of them has the logo engraved on it, one of them doesn't. Take the one that does have the engraved logo and hold it upright with the engraving side up. Then there's 7 screws like this and 3 individual screws of different lengths. Using the 7 that are the same, you start putting screws in the little holes. Now, a delicate part, we take some stiff paper or thin cardboard, set it on top, press it together, and flip it over. And then slide the paper out. So now we have all the screws standing upright. Next we have 2 discs and 1 handle. We take one of the discs. It doesn't really matter, but I like to take the side that's engraved facing up and take the longest screw, and there's 2 holes. You put it through the hole which is not in the center. This hole is centered, this hole is not. The screw goes through that one. And then flip it upside down and set that. It fits exactly inside the hole and the bigger piece. Okay, now we take, there's 2 pieces shaped like this, one of them thin and flimsy, one fairly thick. Take the thick one and set it down and wiggle it until all the screws go through. Next we put the pistons and the connecting rods in. Pistons in first. They go with the little round connecting end facing inwards. Then the connecting rods, we start with this one. I call this a spider. I'm not sure what the technical name is. That goes in the middle, and it goes with a screw hole going through it. So we put that, and we see it connects to the piston there. And then we take one thick washer. There's thin washer and thick washer. Take a thick washer and put it on there. We could have done this in the other order, doesn't really matter. And one thin washer goes on top. Next, the 6 remaining connecting rods. You need to get them connected at both ends. A little bit delicate. Not delicate, it's finicky. Everything is lined up. Okay, next this thin flexible piece goes on, and then the remaining outer piece. It doesn't really matter, but I like to put the engraved part out. So up, it's on. This now will sort of hold everything in place, but the screws are still going to fall out if you pick it up. So next we put a nut on the end of each screw. It's very hard to do with gloves. Only wearing gloves to avoid fingerprints. You don't really need gloves, but we want these to look perfect. So I'm not trying to tighten these, just spin them on, and I'm pressing down a little bit to hold the screws, keep them from turning. They don't really turn very easily anyway. Next, we take the remaining disc and set that on here, again through the hole that's not in the middle. And it fits in that hole. Then we take a nut, screw it on here. Okay, at this point this thing will no longer fall apart, but we're going to keep going. Take another nut. We're actually putting 2 nuts on this screw. And I guess at this point we tighten everything. So pick it up using the tiny screwdriver to avoid over-tightening things. We tighten these about as tight as you can comfortably make them using the tiny screwdriver. If you have a big, full-size screwdriver, you could definitely over-tighten and crack the acrylic. So you want to be careful. But the little screwdriver sort of helps not over-tighten. So there's 7 screws around there to tighten. And then the one in the middle, get it nice and tight. Okay. And then just sort of finger tighten the second nut on there. Next, we need to assemble the crank. Take the longer screw, put it through the hole in the handle, and then we give you sort of extra washers. I think there'd be room for 3 washers on here, but I've only got 2. So I put 2 or 3 washers, however many you like, on the handle. Tighten that screw. And then we take the shortest screw and put it through the hole that is in the middle, the center hole, going in the opposite direction from which the handle is sticking out. And then we put 1 nut and tighten it. And then the second nut. And just sort of finger tighten that. So we're left with a little bit of screw sticking out beyond the second nut. That is going to act as a peg, which will fit into the center hole here. So now we slide it down on here, and then go get another nut. Okay, we'll give you plenty of nuts, so this shouldn't happen. Tighten that down there. Now you can't tighten this with the screw on the other end because the screw is already locked in. But if you have a pair of pliers or something like that, you can tighten that nut, or else just finger tighten it. And there you go, it's finished, and crank it around.